Hi everybody, this is Miss Nicole with Bloomfield Public Library, and today, May 1st, is actually Mother Goose Day, and I wanted to take this opportunity to share some Mother Goose rhymes with everybody. And one that I had growing up was The Real Mother Goose, and this is a collection that was done by Rand McNally and Company. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye, 24 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was opened, the birds began to sing. Was not that a dainty dish to set before the king? The king was in his counting house, counting out his money. The queen was in the parlor, eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden, hanging out the clothes, when down came a blackbird and snapped off her nose. Richard Scarry's best Mother Goose ever. Published by Golden Books. London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady. Build it up with wood and clay, wood and clay, wood and clay. Build it up with wood and clay, my fair lady. Ba, ba, black sheep, have you any wool? Yes, sir, 3 bags full. 1 for my master, 1 for my dame, and 1 for the little boy who lives down the lane. Old Mother Goose, when she wanted to wander, would ride through the air on a very fine gander. I love this one. It's also technically a tongue twister. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? The 3 little kittens. 3 little kittens, they lost their mittens, and they began to cry. Oh, mother dear, we sadly fear our mittens we have lost. What? Lost your mittens, you naughty kittens? Then you shall have no pie. Meow, meow, meow. No, you shall have no pie. The 3 little kittens, they found their mittens, and they began to cry. Oh, mother dear, see here, our mittens we have found. What? Found your mittens? You silly kittens, then you shall have some pie. Prr, prr, prr. Oh, let us have some pie. The 3 little kittens put on their mittens and soon ate up the pie. Oh, mother dear, we greatly fear our mittens we have soiled. What? Soiled your mittens, you naughty kittens? Then they began to sigh. Meow, meow, meow. Then they began to sigh. The 3 little kittens, they washed their mittens and hung them out to dry. Oh, mother dear, look here, our mittens we have washed. What? Washed your mittens? You're good little kittens. But I smell a rat close by. Hush, hush, hush. I smell a rat close by. The Glorious Mother Goose, and it's with an anthology with selections by Cooper Edens. Here we go round the mulberry bush, the mulberry bush, the mulberry bush. Here we go round the mulberry bush on a cold and frosty morning. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, Jack jump over the candlestick. Little Bo Peep has lost her sheep and can't tell where to find them. Leave them alone and they'll come home and bring their tails behind them. Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet eating her curds and whey, when down came a spider and sat down beside her and frightened Miss Muffet away. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, that lamb was sure to go. It followed her to school one day. It was against the rule, and made the children laugh and play to see a lamb at school. And I have this book here called Mother Goose in Prose, and it's by Baum, and you may know this author by his incredibly famous and popular Wizard of Oz series of books. The illustrations in this book are done by Maxfield Parrish, who is another really renowned artist. So this is a wonderful volume of stories and artwork, and I thought what I would do is share his vision of the story behind Hickory Dickory Dock and the mice running up the clock. Hickory Dickory Dock, the mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1, the mouse ran down, Hickory Dickory Dock. That's the Mother Goose rhyme we're familiar with. Here's the story as told by Frank Baum. Within the hollow wall of an old brick mansion, away up near the roof, there lived a family of mice. It was a snug little home, pleasant and quiet, and as dark as any mouse could desire. Mamma Mouse liked it because, as she said, the draught that came through the rafters made it cool in summer, and they were near enough to the chimney to keep warm in wintertime. Besides the Mamma Mouse, there were 3 children, named Hickory and Dickory and Dock. There had once been a Papa Mouse as well, but while he was hunting for food one night, he saw a nice piece of cheese in a wire box and attempted to get it. The minute he stuck his head into the box, however, it closed with a snap that nearly cut his head off, and when Mamma Mouse came down to look for him, he was quite dead. Mamma Mouse had to bear her bitter sorrow all alone, for the children were too young at that time to appreciate their loss. She felt that people were very cruel to kill a poor mouse for wishing to get food for himself and his family. There is nothing else for a mouse to do but take what he can find, for mice cannot earn money as people do, and they must live in some way. But Mamma Mouse was a brave mouse and knew that it was now her duty to find food for her little ones. So she dried her eyes and went bravely to work gnawing through the baseboard that separated the pantry from the wall. It took her some time to do this, for she could only work at night. Mice like to sleep during the day and work at night when there are no people around to interrupt them, and even the cat is fast asleep. Some mice run about in the daytime, but they are not very wise mice that do this. At last Mamma Mouse gnawed a hole through the baseboard large enough for her to get through into the pantry, and then her disappointment was great to find the bread jar covered over with a tin pan. "How thoughtless people are to put things where a hungry mouse cannot get to them," said Mamma Mouse to herself with a sigh. But just then she espied a barrel of flour standing upon the floor, and that gave her new courage, for she knew she could easily gnaw through that, and the flour would do to eat just as well as the bread. It was now nearly daylight, so she decided to leave the attack upon the flour barrel until the next night, and gathering up for the children a few crumbs that were scattered about, she ran back into the wall and scrambled up to her nest. Hickory and Dickory and Dock were very glad to get the crumbs, for they were hungry, and when they had breakfasted, they all curled up alongside their mother and slept soundly throughout the day. "Be good children," said Mamma Mouse the next evening as she prepared for her journey to the pantry, "and don't stir out of your nest till I come back. I am in hopes that after tonight we shall not be hungry for a long time, as I shall gnaw a hole at the back of the flour barrel where it will not be discovered." She kissed each one of them goodbye and ran down the wall on her errand. When they were left alone, Hickory wanted to go to sleep again, but little Dock was wide awake and tumbled around so in the nest that his brothers were unable to sleep. "I wish I could go with Mother some night," said Dock. "It's no fun to stay here all the time." "She will take us when we are big enough," replied Dickory. "We are big enough now," declared Dock, "and if I knew my way, I would go out into the world and see what it looks like." "I know a way out," said Hickory, "but Mamma wouldn't like it if we should go without her permission." "She needn't know anything about it," declared the naughty Dock, "for she will be busy at the flour barrel all the night. Take us out for a little walk, Hick, if you know the way." "Yes, do," urged Dickory. "Well," said Hickory, "I'd like a little stroll myself, so if you'll promise to be very careful and not get into any mischief, I'll take you through the hole that I have discovered." So the 3 little mice started off, with Hickory showing the way, and soon came to a crack in the wall. Hickory stuck his head through, and finding everything quiet, for the family of people that lived in the house were fast asleep, He squeezed through the crack, followed by his two brothers. Their little hearts beat very fast, for they knew if they were discovered, they would have to run for their lives. But the house was so still they gained courage, and crept along over a thick carpet until they came to a stairway. "What shall we do now?" whispered Hickory to his brothers. "Let's go down," replied Dock. So very carefully they descended the stairs and reached the hallway of the house. And here they were much surprised by all they saw. There was a big rack for hats and coats, and an umbrella stand, and two quaintly carved chairs, and most wonderful of all, a tall clock that stood upon the floor and ticked out the minutes in a grave and solemn voice. Tick, 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 tick. When the little mice first heard the ticking of the clock, they were inclined to be frightened, and huddled close together upon the bottom stair. "What is it?" asked Dickory in an awed whisper. "I don't know," replied Hickory, who was himself rather afraid. "Is it alive?" asked Dock. "I don't know," again answered Hickory. Then, seeing that the clock paid no attention to them, but kept ticking steadily away and seemed to mind its own business, they plucked up courage and began running about. Presently, Dickory uttered a delighted squeal that brought his brothers to his side. There in a corner lay nearly the half of a bun which little May had dropped when nurse carried her upstairs to bed. It was a great discovery for the three mice, and they ate heartily until the last crumb had disappeared. "This is better than a cupboard or a pantry," said Dock, when they had finished their supper, "and I shouldn't be surprised if there were plenty more good things around if we only hunt for them." But they could find nothing more, for all the doors leading into the hall were closed, and at last Dock came to the clock and looked at it curiously. "It doesn't seem to be alive," he thought, "although it does make so much noise. I'm going behind it to see what I can find." He found nothing except a hole that led to the inside of the clock, and into this he stuck his head. He could hear the ticking plainer than ever now, but looking way up to the top of the clock, he saw something shining brightly and thought it must be good to eat if he could only get at it. Without saying anything to his brothers, Dock ran up the sides of the clock until he came to the works, and he was just about to nibble at a glistening wheel to see what it tasted like, when suddenly, bang, went the clock. It was 1 o'clock, and the clock had only struck the hour. But the great gong was just beside Dock's ear, and the noise nearly deafened the poor little mouse. He gave a scream of terror and ran down the clock as fast as he could go. When he reached the hall, he heard his brothers scampering up the stairs, and after them he ran with all of his might. It was only when they were safe in their nest again that they stopped to breathe, and their little hearts beat fast for an hour afterward, so great had been their terror. When Mamma Mouse came back in the morning, bringing a quantity of nice flour with her for breakfast, they told her of their adventure. She thought they had been punished enough already for their disobedience, so she did not scold them, but only said, "You see, my dears, your mother knew best when she told you not to stir from the nest. Children sometimes think they know more than their parents, but this adventure should teach you always to obey your mother. The next time you run away, you may fare worse than you did last night. Remember your poor father's fate." But Hickory and Dickory and Dock did not run away again. The end. Now, this was another great find of mine from a library book sale. I found this sweet little volume of Mother Goose rhymes. It's just called Mother Goose, but it has illustrations by Kate Greenway. Was an old woman. There was an old woman lived under a hill, and if she's not gone, she lives there still. I like this one because it's just a little bit silly. Diddledy diddledy dumpty, the cat ran up the plum tree. Give her a plum and down she'll come. Diddledy diddledy dumpty. Okay, so that is it for my Mother Goose Storytime share. I've tried to share some of my favorites from all of the collections that I had gathered around me today from my home library. So I hope you enjoyed your Mother Goose celebration, and I'll see you soon for some more Storytime shares.